don't sign up for the Walmart night shift because you love sleep. You sign up because the hours don't ask questions, the aisles are quiet, and the work is the kind you can do with a sore back and a stubborn brain that won't shut off. I took overstock from the steel down to the shelves, broke down pallets until the box knife felt like another finger, and learned to tell the difference between a pallet jack squeal and a compressor about to die, just by how the sound carried through frozen foods. After midnight, the store stops being a store and turns into a map of noises you're supposed to trust. Intercom pops, buzzers, safety beeps from reversing carts, the hum of the lights in power save, the automatic doors breathing to nobody. It's not scary, it's boring. That's the contract. The world forgets you so you can forget everything else. I kept that contract until the night the intercom said my name in a manager's voice who wasn't on the schedule. Cameras showed aisles that didn't exist, and the garden center door opened to wind that wasn't weather. If you work overnights, you know the feeling when the building decides you don't belong in it anymore. I felt it at 3:07 a.m. in paper goods, when a roll of Bounty slid off a shelf I hadn't touched and left a wet footprint where it fell. We weren't mopping. Nothing had spilled. The footprint led toward aisle 13. We don't have an aisle 13. We go from 12 to 14, like hotels go from 12 to 14 to keep people from thinking too hard about math and luck. I pushed the U-boat cart after it like an idiot following breadcrumbs. Cap 2 had already clocked out. AP was in the office. Management home. Just me and the building, and a footprint that should have dried after the first 2 tiles and didn't. The intercom cracked. Associate Daniel to aisle 13, the store manager's voice said. Exact cadence. Exact throat clear. He was off that night. I checked my zebra. No task for 13. No mod. No cap guide. Nothing. Still, I turned into seasonal, and there it was. A new sign where a blank beam lived 10 minutes earlier. 13. Black on white. Corporate font. I walked under it, and the building made a new sound. The kind the freezers make right before they shutter and settle after a power blink. The shelves were the same until they weren't. 2 runs in, the peg hooks carried items with no shelf labels, and my zebra scanner returned no location data. Gravity felt a degree heavier. The fluorescents above didn't flicker. They held the flicker like a thought they weren't done having. If you want me to say I saw a ghost, I didn't. I saw a planogram that had never been printed. I saw toilet paper brands that don't exist in our distribution. I saw a 4-foot of a scene on TV that wasn't in the set. Every box printed a little soft, like it had been copied by a tired machine. At the end of the run, the footprint stopped at the safety gate that divides seasonal from garden. The red light over the roll-up door had gone from steady to pulsing. Outside, the sky looked the way it looks 10 minutes before a storm, but the radar was clean. I know because my phone buzzed, and the new message was the weather app telling me nothing was coming. The intercom popped again. Code 51. Garden, the manager's voice said. Code 51 is a safety escort. We don't call those from empty departments. I hit the crash bar, and the garden door breathed, warm air out, then cold in like a lung. The wind chimes no one had unboxed moved without sound. The plants were dead because it's January, and corporate still wants the wire racks pushed to the fence, so we look open. At the far end, where lawn and garden meets receiving, the old corrugated, wall bowed in like someone had leaned hard on the other side. The red exit sign over the emergency door hummed without light. There are sounds buildings make when they're trying to get your attention, and sounds they make when they're trying not to. The bowing metal made the second one. I should have called AP. I went to receiving alone, because that's what men who think they're useful do. The dock plate at door 3 was down without a trailer at the bay. The green light above the door had no right to be green. I heard the chain on the compactor rattle once the way it does when someone slaps it in a hurry. When I turned the bailers, safety bar was up without a lockout tag. That's not a haunting, that's a write-up. I set the bar, tagged it myself, and that's when I saw the badge in the shrink wrap pile. Armand's. He'd quit 2 weeks before, on a night I wasn't on. I picked it up and it was warm, like a pocket had just let go of it. I said his name. That's when something small skittered behind the steel shelving where we park overstock. Grills. The zebra in my hand vibrated. New task. Clean up. Aisle 13. No one creates cleanup for a non-existent aisle at 3:20 a.m. The task showed a bin location I'd never seen. MOD 7 below. Below. There is no below. We don't have a basement. We have a storm room built 12 years ago when corporate still cared about the word shelter. It's a cinder block cube under receiving with 2 emergency lamps and a rack of bottled water that's never quite full. The door was propped with a broken pallet. The air down there smelled like rubber bands and damp cardboard, and somebody else's breath. The fluorescents took a second to decide to be lights. The lamp over the far wall pulsed, not flickered, pulsed like the power was being inhaled and returned. On that wall in black marker, somebody had drawn the store map the way new hires see it in their employee training. Not accurate, just zones and a sense of how far it is from pharmacy to pets. Aisle numbers ran tidy across it until they didn't. Between 12 and 14, someone had written 13, and under it, not in marker, but in something wet fingered into concrete, a line of letters the length of my forearm. They stay if you count them. I didn't understand it then. In the corner, shrink wrap crackled. Something moved under it the way a trapped bird remembers it used to be air. I pulled it back because curiosity and arrogance wear the same vest. Under the plastic, Armand's handheld. The scanner was on. The screen showed a live camera feed, my face looking down at it from a second earlier, then a second earlier than that, like time was buffering and trying to catch up. I heard wheels up on the dock. Pallet jack, not ours. The sound of hard plastic. On concrete has a pitch we all know by heart. I killed my light and held breath. The dock door chains lifted one link and fell back like someone had tested the weight of the moment and found it heavy. The intercom in the storm room coughed. Just a speaker wired into the wall. And the manager's voice said, "Associate, Daniel to aisle 13. We need you to face the seasonal." Face the seasonal. That's what we tell new kids when they don't know we call it zoning. The stupidity of the phrase made the fear shrink just enough for me to move. I went up. Garden was breathing that not weather again. A pallet of pool salt I'd seen dead center yesterday had been rotated 45 degrees, like a shopper had changed their mind about geometry. On top sat a return bin with metal sides and a cracked plastic bottom. Inside, a stack of receipts, stapled together by the kind of overachiever AP loves. Every receipt printed the same time, 3:07 a.m. Every receipt had my associate ID as the cashier. We close at night. We don't sell. The cameras in the ceiling domes clicked when I looked. Up, not like shutters, like attention. When I got to the office, AP was half asleep on the monitors, and I told him someone was messing with Garden and 13. He rubbed his eyes and said, "We don't have a 13, Dan." He rewound the feed for paper goods anyway. At 3:07, my U-boat cart slid into frame. A roll of towels fell. I bent to pick it up. Behind me, for exactly 6 frames, an aisle marker flickered into the edge of the picture. 13, and then didn't. He paused it, rewind, frame by frame. "Glitch," he said, "because that's what human beings call things that demand more belief than they want to spend." He clicked another camera, another, hit the one for receiving, and there I was in the storm room, looking up into a handheld I hadn't yet picked up. He didn't pause that one. He turned the whole system off and on, and when the screens found themselves again, there was only me, in the now, in the doorway, saying I was going home. He didn't try to stop me. Managers don't have power over buildings that have decided they're done being stores. On the way out, the front doors breathed open to a wind that was weather, real enough to sting. The receipt printer at the self-checkout near the exit cycled and spit a blank, then another. Then, on the third, in faint thermal gray, "See you after. Midnight." I still work there. Health insurance is better than pride. I don't stock paper goods after 3 Croydon. I don't answer the intercom if it says my name in a voice that shouldn't be in the building. I don't look for aisle 13, and when a spill happens and somebody says, "Count how many times they slip," I make a joke and I don't count. They stay if you count them. If you're night shift, you know, some aisles you face once and never again. I only went because the pharmacy drive-thru was closed early, and the fever wouldn't break. I figured I could run in, grab cough meds and sports drinks, tap my card, be back in the car before the chill reached my bones again. Walmart after 11 p.m. is a different town. 3 cashiers at the front, a floor crew working cases like they're dancing with them, and a handful of people who don't want to be seen by daylight. The automatic doors kissed me in, and the cold air smelled like citrus cleaner and cardboard. Pharmacy lights were still up bright. I took the long way through home because the tile is smoother there, and my knees were throwing fits that night. Maybe that's why I saw her. A woman in a grey dress that had never been sold here. A cardigan too warm for August, pushing a cart with nothing in it but a paper list folded in half. She walked with purpose and that long look straight ahead, like people do when they know the layout and don't want help. I glanced down to check my list. Menthol rub, electrolyte drink, ibuprofen. And when I looked up, she'd turned down aisle 13. We don't have a 13 here either. I looked at the beam signs. 12 household chemicals, 14 air fresheners, and between them a little laminated placard I'd never noticed. 13. It wasn't printed in the corporate font. It was done on one of those back office labelers, all caps, a little crooked, stuck to the beam with a piece of clear tape that had yellowed at the corners. The aisle itself looked normal at first. Paper plates, plastic forks, napkins. Then the Products started repeating. A 4 foot of cheap cups, then the same 4 foot again, same dented box, same tape scar. I laughed to myself because fever makes you dramatic. I took my basket down the right side, and the shelves dreamt up a choice I didn't need. 50 brands of the same nothing. Halfway down, the floor changed. Tile to concrete without a seam. The canopy lights above flickered once and then went steady but dimmer, like a dimmer we don't have had been dialed down a notch. The woman in the gray dress was still ahead of me, cart silent. I called, "Ma'am?" because that's how I was raised. She didn't turn. She got to the end cap and turned left, and when I turned left too, I was looking down aisle 13 again. Same end cap, same dented box. I laughed again, because sometimes your brain chooses the friendly answer, stores or mazes, and I tried the other direction. Right, then left. 13 again. I set my basket on the floor, and it didn't make the sound baskets make on tile. It made the sound baskets make when they're set down on a stage. I looked up for the security dome to wave at a camera. There wasn't one. We put cameras in sight lines on purpose. There should have been 3 from where I stood. The store's closing the center, I told myself, even though it wasn't and they weren't. I'm turning around. I turned around and the beam sign said 13 on the side that had said 12 when I came in. The lights dimmed another notch. The air took on that old freezer smell, Freon and damp cardboard, that stores get after a hurricane when the generator's trying not to lose a fight. I found the woman at the next intersection. She was closer than she should have been after the turns I took, and she was reading her paper list as if it were a menu for a dinner she wasn't hungry for. "Excuse me," I said, because I didn't know what else to do with the fact of her. She looked up like a puppet looks up when a child lifts a string for the first time. Her eyes were the color of the cleaner they use at the end of the night. That weird, not blue. "Do you know where the pharmacy is?" I asked, because that was safe, and I could let the manager handle the rest of the weird later. "Aisle 13, she said with the crisp, cheerful tone of an associate who has said it 100 times. "We don't have a 13, I said, breathless for no good reason. "Oh," she said, "that's why people don't find it." Then she pushed her empty cart right past me and turned left, and the aisle swallowed her up. I followed because illness and fear share a path sometimes. The aisle went on longer. The end caps glitched repeats of themselves like a video buffering. My phone lost its bars, then lost its clock. Fever sweat found my eyebrows and made my eyes sting. I tried to be smart. I cut through the shelves. There's always an inch between the back of one 4 foot and the start of the next. I crab walked through and came out on 13 again, this time standing in front of a product we don't sell. Glass bottles with paper labels that said sleep in 3 languages I recognized, and a 4th I didn't. Price tags all read 0.00. The intercom popped and a child's voice said my name. Not the store's name for me, my mother's. I set the bottle back and it was warm. I did what I should have done first. I looked up for the red exit, the one with the metal push bar beneath. It was there, 2 runs down, and the bar had a yellow cap on the alarm switch, like they only put on doors the fire marshal made them promise not to ignore. I took the shortest path. I didn't run. If you run in a maze, you end up running forever. I counted bays, 1, 2, 3, and put my shoulder to the bar. The alarm should have bleated. It didn't. The door swung into darkness colder than the store, and I stumbled out into sporting goods. A group of fishing rods leaned where the emergency egress diagram says they're never supposed to be. The beam sign said 11 and 15. I turned back, and the red exit was a poster for a back-to-school drive from 2 years ago. The world filled with regular store noises, like I'd been underwater and popped up. A floor lead in a blue vest with keys on a retractable line asked if I needed help. I said I couldn't find pharmacy. He pointed. It was exactly where it's always been. When I got there, the lights felt normal, and the cases were locked like they should be. And the associate asked if I needed a key for the cough meds, because teenagers had been stealing them again. I told him no, bought what I needed, and left without looking behind me. In the car, my receipt printed 2 lines I didn't buy. Restock, ISIL 13, and Void, ISIL 13. Both at 11:43 p.m., both with an associate ID number I don't recognize. I put the paper in the glove box and decided to live in the friendlier answer. That lasted until last week when I went back for batteries. Someone had reprinted the little laminated beam sign. The number wasn't crooked anymore. 13, clean and straight, like it had always been there, and I had learned a new truth by mistake. I don't shop alone at night anymore. I don't ask associates where things are. I let the app walk me. If you ever see a woman with an empty cart, gray dress, paper list, and eyes the color of cleaner, don't follow. Tell yourself you don't need anything in that aisle. People get found in this store. I believe that. I also believe some of them get counted first. I've been pulling a dry van up and down 3 states long enough to know the personality of a dock by the way the light hits the bay doors. Grocery warehouses are fast and loud. Furniture stores are grumpy. Walmart is polite. The guard shacks smile. The appointment windows mean something. If you're on time, they're on time. And even the cranky receiving manager knows he needs your freight more than he needs to feel big. That's why this stood out. Door 3 at the back of the Supercenter on County 8. Midnight drop. The lot was empty in a way I don't see often anymore. Not quiet, empty. No vendor box trucks, no reefer hum, no smokers behind the corrugate line with their vests off. The buzzer at the back door sang its 2-note song, and the light turned from red to green without anyone answering. The dock plate slammed up under its own will, like the building couldn't wait to eat. I backed in, set the brake, chalked the wheels, and listened. No pallet jack, no chatter, no radio. The man who opened the door wore a yellow vest without company logos and a badge with a name that didn't match the style of anyone's badge I've seen. He had the walk though, the one AP guys have, the one that says, "I don't hustle for you, drop and stay," he said. "We'll bring your bills." Drop and stay isn't a phrase here. It's a phrase at cross docks and places that don't want you to see what's on the floor. I said I'd stay in the cab. He smiled like that counted. 30 minutes, no jack, no voices. The green light stayed green. My ELD pinged a violation it shouldn't have, like the lot had moved an inch and the DOT had decided to believe it. I got out and walked the edge where the trailer meets the building, cold air bleeding out onto my hands. The dock plate was up and locked. The lock that grabs the rear impact guard was down. They'd pinned me to the building without touching me. I hit the door buzzer. It didn't ring. It clicked under my finger like it had already done its job. The intercom over the door crackled. Driver Daniel, receiving. We'll take you around. Take me around means bring a pallet to the sales floor, which isn't my job. Negative. I said out loud to a speaker, because you talk to boxes when you spend too much of your life with them. Stay with the unit. The speaker said, stay, with my voice. I went around the corner toward lawn and garden, because there's always a human having a cigarette there. No one. But the gate was open, and the wind chimes that should have been in seasonal were hanging from the chain link, moving without sound. The lights under the metal awning were on full bright, even though they run at half at night. A sign leaned against a stack of fertilizer we don't sell in winter. It read, Deliveries. Dock 3 in block letters, written with a marker that had bled in the cold. I was at Dock 3. When I went back, the trailer seal I'd broken 10 minutes earlier had been retied with fresh twine. Not a new seal. Twine. Tied. In a bow the way somebody ties a present when they're trying to make you forget it's just socks. I sliced it and opened the doors. The air in the trailer smelled wrong, sweet and burned, like candy you left too long in a pot. The first pallet was where I left it. The second had been moved forward 2 inches, enough to make the load shift a conversation I didn't want to have with my dispatcher. I climbed in to square it, and the dock plate rose under my boots without, the light switching to red. It grabbed the trailer like a hand under a shirt, and the door rolled down behind me with a slam that shivered the skin on my arms. Hey! I shouted, because men shout before they think. The overhead bulbs buzzed on, not LED, old T12s that stores pulled 10 years ago. Their light has a color you don't forget, green and flat, like hospital air. A radio somewhere played the top of the hour tone from a station that doesn't exist anymore. I know because I used to drive nights and live by that tone. It was 12 Aston by that radio. My phone said 11:14. The wall in front of the bays looked newer than the rest. Smooth drywall, fresh yellow safety stripe along the bottom, no scuffs from pallets learning. How to be handled. New wall inside an old dock means somebody closed something. I walked it looking for the door they always leave themselves and found it. A magnet catch disguised as a fire extinguisher bracket. Push, twist, pull. The panel swung inward into another receiving. Smaller. Low ceiling. The paint color Walmart. Stopped using in 2011. A compactor with a chain that didn't match our brand. Stacks of returns labeled salvage with dates that had a 19 where a 20 should be. My breath fogged. On the far wall, someone had taped the old 10-foot rule poster, the one that says acknowledge every customer within 10 feet with a smile, in a font corporate killed a decade ago. The smile on the cartoon associate had been scratched out with something sharp. I backed out. The panel shut. The magnet caught like it had been hungry. The intercom over the modern dock coughed. Driver Daniel, it said, and then a voice laughed in the way tape laughs when it's been recorded over 100 times. Stay. I went for the man door by the time clock. It should have needed a badge. It opened to air that was night and not cave. I took it, rounding the long way, to the cab, watching the reflection in the glass as much as I watched where my feet went. In the reflection, The dock lights behind me came on one by one like an airport runway. The green at my bay flicked to red without the lock moving. I didn't argue. I pulled the chocks and the impact guard screamed against the lock arm as I yanked forward. The arm let go the way a hand lets go of a sleeve when it realizes the sleeve has a shoulder attached. On the apron, someone had written in soap where my rear tires had been, "Stay." Not paint. Soap. The kind we use to mark cracked tires. I should have driven all the way home. I went to the guard shack like a good boy. It was empty. The logbook had my name on it in someone else's handwriting. The time in read 23:07. The time outline was blank, except for the word later. Weeks after, I hauled a load to a different store 2 towns over. Bright day, easy in, easy out. A kid at the back door with a brand new vest and the gait of someone who still thinks this is a job and not a life signed my bills. As I turned to go, the intercom inside popped and a manager's voice said, cheerful and bored, "Driver Daniel to receiving 3. Wrong store. Wrong name for a dock. Right voice. I don't take after midnight appointments anymore. Dispatch thinks it's because I want the better rates on daylight runs. They're not wrong. The long truth is this. Some docks are holes the present falls through. Some buildings keep earlier versions of themselves folded up behind the drywall. Like old uniforms nobody had the heart to throw out. If you pull into a bay and the light turns green too fast and the plate lifts without hands and the radio plays time checks from your father's decade, set the brake and set your pride aside. 2. Back out. Find a different door. Deliveries don't need you as bad as the dark does. And if a wall opens that wasn't there yesterday and shows you a smaller, older room where everything is a little too neat, don't go in to be curious. Come. Back enough times and you won't leave. They like drivers. We arrive alone. We leave on time. We're easy to count.